everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making a simple crystal bezeled ring. You can do this with a lot of different materials. I'm going to be using the Delicas and some of the set crystals. If you do need any supplies, check the links below to shop with us online. Gather up your materials and let's get started. To begin, I just want to stress the fact that it doesn't really matter what type of crystal you're using. I have here one of the long baguettes in the 5x15. I have one of the crystal navettes in the 10x5. And then the one I'll be using is the bezeled Chaton in the SS28, which is about a 6mm. I have Duracoat galvanized gold Delica beads, which is important because you want something that is going to last, since you'll be going through and actually usually washing your hands and everything with that. What you want to begin is a size 10 beading needle. With 0.006, I'm using white, and I have a stop bead on the end of my thread, leaving about 2 inches after the end of the project. I'm going to begin by making this a very simple band. I'm doing 2 beads to do a 2 row of peyote. Now you can do 4 rows like I did here on this ring as well, and the steps are going to be the exact same. Instead of 2 beads at the start, you want to add 4. I want this one to be a little bit dainty to show you the difference of the sizes of bands that you can do with this simple peyote stitch. I'm going to put a 3rd bead on, and so back through bead number 1 towards that stop bead. Do a nice tight pull, so bead number 2 and 3 sit right on top of one another. Just like that. Little pyramid there. Add another bead, sew back through bead number 3 that you just added. Add a 5th bead, sew back through bead number 4. So you can see this goes very quickly. Going back through, adding 1 bead at a time and just creating this nice little band here. Bead goes on, you sew back through. If you don't know peyote stitch, this is very easy to do as well. When you're doing it, you just want to make sure that those beads sit in line. Give a nice tight pull on the thread. Always tug the thread, never the needle, because you don't want to fray the thread that sits within the eye of the needle. Keep going till you have your actual length that you want. Keep in mind that your crystal will add some space to it. And if you have a ring sizer or a ring mandrel, you may want that in order to size up the ring. Also, you can take a ring that you know that fits and use that as your base if you're making it for yourself. Once you go through and complete your band, and again, whether or not that's 4 rows, 2 rows, 6 rows, or however wide you want to do it, if you want to add beads to it, there's 2 different methods. One is you can finish off the peyote, binding it together just like the sorbet bracelet if you want to check that out, and sew the crystal directly onto the top. I prefer to have a little bit of an open look, which is what I did with the long oval, and what I'm going to do here with the SS28 Chaton. So going in the end here, I have 44 rows of peyote, which, because I only used 1 bead each time, it's 44 beads, so it's really quick. What I'm going to do is, coming out of the last one, I'm going to pick up a 15, and I'm going to sew back through that same Delica bead as if I was continuing. The 15s are just a hair smaller, and that makes it look like it's just a little bit less of a gap. I did make sure that when I was ending, that one of my rows ended at the top and one of them ended at the bottom, so they sit opposite from one another. Coming out the end then, I am going to pick up 1 and 2 of my 15OC beads, and these are also the Duracoat galvanized gold, and they're size 15. And I'm going to sew through my Chaton from one end to the other. Coming out then the other side, I'm going to add 2 15s, and I'm going to sew through, sticking to that same side of my bead. So when I'm looking at it here, I'm out to the right side basically of the project, and I'm going to go into the right side of the other side. And I'm going to sew down into, adding 1 more bead, 3rd bead, skip over the stop bead and sew into the bead that's already there, that Delica bead. Coming out the Delica bead, add 2 more 15s, grab the other hole of the Monty, and you're going to sew through, straight through the other way. What this is going to do then, let me move that stop bead out so you can see, is as I pull the thread, it's going to sit right there in the middle of the Monty. Coming out the Monty on the other side, just like it does on the larger one as well. Which if you're interested in seeing the larger one, I did do on a YouTube or on a Facebook Live just a little bit ago. Add on 2 more 15s, and we're gonna sew through that 15 that sits on the other side of the band. Pulling that back, that's gonna make it sit straight and in the middle. We're gonna sew through the Delica, that's on that starter side that we started to add the Monty. Give a nice tight pull, sew through the 15s, and straight through the Monty again. Now you want to make sure if you're adding a crystal to the top, any bead to the top, make sure to sew through 2 times to do so. Coming out then, I'm going down through the 2 on the side, basically reinforcing this whole thing, going back through all 3, going through the Delica, up through the 2, giving a nice tight pull. Go ahead then, go back through your Monty again. So we're going through, this is our 3rd time. Go back through those 2 Delicas, or sorry, there's 2 15s, I'm sorry. Go back across them, across the row, through the 15 and the Delica there. And as you go through those 15 and the Delicas then, I want you to bring the thread and needle out. Go in here, go back through the 2 15-ohs. And also through the Monty, straight across to the other side. When you go straight across to the other side also, what we're going to do is sew down through the project and end our thread a little bit. So we're going through the Monty, out through the seed beads, kind of wiggle it out the side there if you need to. Down through here, through these 3. Go through the Delica right there, and now what we're going to do is reverse the thread. So we're going to go back through to pull this to center as well. We're going back through the Delica that sits behind. So we're going back down into the band. I want you to go through the Delica, right coming out next to the stop bead. And think about this kind of like sewing on a button. We're going to hop over that stop bead, and I want to sew back into the 15 and the Delica that sit right above. What this is going to do is pull that definitely together. And see, that closes up any gap that you would have had there along the sides. And then your ring is going to sit nice into the center, whether or not you're doing it on a smaller one or you're going all blinged out and getting a nice gold piece. If you want to, also one thing to keep in mind is that you can go around the outer edge of a Monty, of a Delica, as you sew in and add those 2 beads to it. Going through then here, I'm going to go back down through my Delica, going backwards again, going back through the next Delica down. And while I'm over here on the stop bead at the starter thread, go ahead and remove that stop bead, take that off a little bit, tie these 2 thread ends together. Now what you want to do, and this is very important, because it's a ring and you're going to see the side of the band, take your thread and needle that is still attached and sew down the band several stitches. I'm going to sew back down through. As you sew back to the other side, give a nice tight pull, which is going to get that knot usually to go inside of one of the Delicas. Sew back a couple stitches, always making sure that you're sewing through those Delicas right next to one another so you're not going to see any additional thread. And then once you're back about a ½ inch or so, you're going to go in with your thread burner and simply burn off the edge of the thread. Go back to the starter thread here and burn off the edge of the thread. If you don't like to knot or you don't want to see the knot, you can also leave a little bit more thread at the start of the bead, and then what that will do is you can attach a needle to it and sew back through. So this ended up, just for your knowledge, with about a size 8 band with those 42 seed beads coming out right on the side of the Monty. So whether or not you do a 2-band, if you do 4-band, or really have fun creating with all the different crystal shapes, I know the Navette is my next one, you really have fun doing a really, really simple band and then going back and forth through the holes of all of these different lovely bezeled crystals. Just to show one other example that as you're doing this, what you can do is you have all your collections here. You can also not add any 15-0s and just come out, add 2 beads to your Peyote Stitch here, go through your crystal, 2 beads on the other side, through the last 2 rows of the Peyote Stitch, back through the last 2 rows of the Peyote Stitch, just like you've been doing if you're making them. And then keep in mind, just to show a little variance, like I had said, if you want to, you can come out of some of the crystals there along the outer edge, and you can decorate the outside of the crystals here. So if I wanted to, I could add in, say, some green beads and hop from one crystal to the other. So keep in mind that you can decorate more than just linking those 2 rows of peyote together. Thanks so much for joining me in making these fun Delica bezeled rings. Remember, if you need any supplies, check out the links below to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Remember also, if you haven't, hit that subscribe button so you get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. As always, use this video as a springboard to learn to design and have fun using some of the stitches maybe in more creative ways that you haven't done before. Remember, again, if you want to post your comments, your questions, and also the vast knowledge that you may have to help others looking at this video, as well as in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. As always, thank you so much and have fun making, and good luck stopping making them once you get addicted to having all of these beautiful crystal bezeled rings.